I bought this mystery AliExpress grinder for $250 when my DF54 started giving me troubles. Was it worth the gamble? Hi, I'm Pavel and this is my first video on this channel, Amateur Coffee Stuff. I'm a complete beginner in the world of coffee and I love learning it, so please don't be too harsh with your judgment. You also should know that right now I personally am more focused on the workflow optimization and on making as little mess as possible in the kitchen, rather than on pursuing the perfect job. Yet I think I still might have something to offer. So today I'm going to look into this coffee grinder I got from AliExpress. This listing is identified as commercial 64mm Burr coffee grinder, etc., but its actual brand name and the model number is apparently Gumoling GML1005A. It has a full metal die-cast body, weighs about 5 kilograms or 11 pounds, equipped with a 350 watt motor, and of course features flat 64mm burrs that seem to be the mainstream of today's home baristas. As you might have already noticed, this grinder is apparently quite similar to the Schauder Full Metal 305 model, which had been reviewed here and there, well, not here, but there are some real differences. There's virtually no info available on this particular grinder except limited and pretty misleading AliExpress listings, which is the reason I decided to do this video. I bought this device with my own money. I have nothing to gain from this video except your appreciation, and I see it as kind of a public service. I've put the link to the grinder in the description, and I feel I need to explain why I bought this particular model. So I've been using the well-known DF54 for over a year now, and it was pretty much fine, although quite slow. But a few months ago, it started having issues with severe clogging every few cups, and it was giving me a lot of static. I researched the problem a bit and came to the conclusion that I probably needed to replace that awful nylon declumper, which I eventually did using a 3D printed part. Restoring the DF54 to the original state of performance. But while I was looking for info on the DF54, I also got some YouTube suggestions to watch more videos on cheap and very fast 64mm flat burrs grinders, priced as low as $150 like Schauder and Mocon. So I got that equipment acquisition bug, started to look what were my options. Unfortunately, Amazon wasn't one of them, since the voltage in my country is 220 volts, which means I would have to use a step-down power converter. Both Amazon UK and Germany had nothing to offer. I also wanted a grinder with a metal die-cast body, as my DF54 has one, and in a white color, which needless to say also wasn't available on Amazon. So I started looking on AliExpress, and this was the cheapest listing I found that complied with my requirements. I figured that buying an unknown grinder shouldn't be as risky as buying an unknown coffee maker from overseas, since the latter is much more complicated thing, and I had my fair share of adventures with buying those. So would I do that again? That remains to be seen. Anyway, I rolled the dice. I ended up paying $250 for this grinder, including shipping, after some coupons and discounts and before custom duties. It's interestingly the most affordable DF54 proposal I was able to find at this time was more expensive than this, and it came from Turing website rather than from AliExpress. So what is this? The AI tools claim that while Schrader is an actual company that also manufactures Moccom grinders rather than an OEM rebranding enterprise, this Gumoling GML1005A one is supposedly manufactured by a subsidiary of Gemini, which I didn't know at the time of the purchase. And even though we only can trust the AIs that much, this makes it all the more interesting. The grinder is positioned as a commercial one. I came to an understanding that these less-known Chinese grinders with metal casting bodies are referred to as commercial, and those with plastic or thin metal sheet bodies are professional. Also, those grinders aren't designed as single-dose grinders, as they are usually equipped with large beam hoppers without bellows. We'll get to it in a bit. So, what was in the box? Not a lot. Owner's manual, quite useless. A hopper with kind of sliding flap and a white lid. A small brush and the grinder itself. That's it. No dosing cup and no base or supporting bracket for one, and also no bellows. I was concerned that this grinder would be significantly larger than the DF54, but it's actually not that bad. And the space I had on my kitchen's counter was just enough to put it near my coffee maker instead of the DF54. On paper, it weighs about half a kilo or 1 pound more than the DF54, but subjectively, the DF feels heavier, possibly because it packs this similar weight in a smaller envelope. In the effort of adapting this device to my single dosing needs, I installed the bellows instead of the large beans hoppers that came with the grinder. This bellows also came from AliExpress. It costed me about $20 and it is supposedly compatible with the Eureka atom grinder. You can see the link in the video description. All I needed to do was to remove the metal part it came with from the bottom, and the rubber bellows fits with the grinder perfectly. It doesn't come off like in the DF54. Great success. In my opinion, it is much more aesthetic than the giant stock hopper, saves space, and it's much more suitable for single dosing. The grind adjustment dial is locked in place with this spring-loaded thing, which also serves as the grind setting indicator. Yes, it's on the grinder left side rather than at the front, when the button is pushed and the dial is unlocked. It rotates quite smoothly. The adjustment is advertised as stepless, or exactly as having 55 stepless settings, and it would be true if not for the locking mechanism. As you can see, whenever I leave the adjustment ring, the ring tends to snap into the nearest rotation. You can try and set it somewhere in the middle, but it wouldn't be even remotely stable, and the slightest vibration will snap it again into the closest rotation. Is it a problem? Well, not for me, and not at this stage. I actually prefer it that way, maybe just because I am not experienced and I prefer the simplicity over the superfine adjustment in pursuit of the perfect shot. But, this is not as advertised, so just be aware of this. Anyway, the espresso range is located around 2 digits, at least with the stock burrs set. Weirdly, the dial doesn't have a 0. It starts with a 1. And this bar that supposedly shows coarser and finer adjustment direction seems to be better. which may be confusing for some, but we know that turning the ring clockwise gives us final grind and counterclockwise causes. So I'm going to disregard this. The controls are similar to shutter ones. There are 5 buttons: on, off, recycle, single cut, dual cut, and manual. Single and dual cut buttons also function as plus and minus for fine adjustment with increments of 0.1 or 0.5 seconds when long pressed. The manual button also functions as enter. The recycle one, once pressed, allows us to see how many times the grinder was used. That's an interesting feature. I'm guessing it would be useful for coffee shops, which actually uh, gives away the commercial nature of this grinder. At least the marketing department geniuses meant what they said this time. The tube is a large metal tube, which is magnetically attached and easy to clean. So I'm really not concerned about clogging with this one. Feels real nice. However, once in a while, when you touch it, there is some coffee free-falling out of it right on the counter, and it needs to be cleaned out. Oopsie, I made a mess. Not that nice. And finally this, the portafilter mount. Not rails, just a piece of metal. As I've already mentioned, the grinder doesn't come with a dozing cup included. It is designed to dispose the ground coffee directly into the portafilter. Right? The typical 58mm portafilter fits here just fine, even with a dozing ring. However, if you want to use a bottomless portafilter, it wouldn't have the fixed point underneath. Definitely an issue. Also, there are 2 problems with using a regular portafilter. One, you need to support the portafilter with your hand at any time the grinder operates, otherwise the vibration will cause it to fall, with all the ground coffee mess that comes with them. Second, it complicates the retention measurements quite a lot. That's why when I just got it, I will just hold my dosing cup between the portafilter mount and the tube, like that. It's not very stable, convenient, or static, but still works. What I did next was reinstalling this portafilter mount upside down to get more headroom and fitting a custom 3D printed dosing cup holder over. Like that. Much more convenient, and the mess problem is completely resolved. Let me know if you'd like to see this model on a site like Printables. One of my kids designed it and he's in high school, so your support will be appreciated. Above the portafilter holder, there is another play button underneath the tube. It's a bit flimsy, hard to access with the portafilter or cup installed, and in my opinion, completely unnecessary. Let's talk operation. What did I notice? First, this thing is really fast. With stock burrs, it completes the double shot 18-gram dose in just about 5 seconds. That's consistent with a rate of approximately 3.5 grams per second, which is much higher than the advertised 2.3. If you weigh your beans in advance, I don't even think there is a reason to measure the time. It's just fast. I am considering replacing the stock burrs, and I expect this rate to go down. However, right now, it is very impressive. Second, it's not noisy, although I wouldn't say it sounds particularly pleasant. Unlike the DF54, there is a significant difference in the pitch with and without the pins. I suspect the motor speed is affected quite significantly when the pins are introduced. Third, the popcorn protection is not sufficient. Several times with hot start operation, I actually got a pin or two ejected from the grinder chamber and flown out of the bellows. This means you either need to introduce the pins very carefully or just use hot start mode like I just did. It's really not a problem with this grinder. Seems like that 350 watts motor delivers. Fourth, there is no static, at least for now. Very good. And finally, the retention. During the first few runs using the single dozing, I got 0.3 to 0.5 grams retention, which is clearly higher than what we would like to have. After some time, the retention went down to acceptable numbers of 0.1 to 0.2 grams per shot. As I said, this grinder wasn't designed for single dosing. It's a commercial one, probably meant to be used continuously rather than aiming for precision. And since I'm more focused on optimizing the workflow right now, I use this grinder without pre-weighting the exact amount of beans, just feeding some beans into the bellows and pressing the single cut button. The predefined time of 5 seconds gives me anywhere between 16 and a half to 17 and a half grams of ground coffee. So far I tried Costa Rican Dota Tarazu, Colombia Supremo, and Guatemala Antigua, so I can say it's very consistent with these burrs, but still acceptable for me. Think that with slower burrs, it can be more consistent. All in all, this grinder is very similar to the full metal Shardos 3 or 5, and costs about the same. It's crazy fast, it's quiet enough, has no static, suitable for espresso, and unlikely to clog. It also looks nice in the white color with the bellows. One other thing, it doesn't have buttons on the side, and unlike the DF54, I don't need to hold it when I turn it on, since it just won't move. The timed operation is also a bonus, especially if you are lazy enough and aren't too happy to fiddle with scales, especially in a busy morning. It also has some less positive things, like that lack of adapter for a dosing cup, no real popcorn protection, the weird grind size dial, which isn't truly stepless, inconsistent timed output, and an unresolved tendency to make an occasional mess when you don't expect it to. None of those are real showstoppers for me, especially after I modded the grinder for 58mm cup support and continue to use it with cold start. I think I do feel some difference in the coffee taste between this and the DF54. The DF54 is more nuanced and the aftertaste lasts longer, but I guess that is where the potential for future bursts of grade comes into the picture. What I didn't do was to disassemble it to check the burst alignment, to measure the motor speed, etc. I might do some of that stuff somewhere in the future. I also didn't try to prepare any other recipe besides a classic espresso. So, is it an upgrade over the DF54? It can be. It definitely has the potential, and with a couple of modifications, it would be quite a worthy deal, provided you accept its peculiarities, and, it would last long enough. Thank you for watching. I hope this video was interesting enough for you and to the point. If you like and subscribe, I'll have some motivation to do more videos. Bye for now.